Welcome to the channel, Joanne.
Thank you. It's great to be here and from so far away, too.
Yes. Joanne Farley is the author of the soon to be released fictional book, Letters to Cassie. So tell us about that.
Well, Letters to Cassie began in my mind a long time ago, not the actual book, but when I was in high school, I was actually attending a boarding school in Venezuela. My parents were missionaries in Trinidad, and so I had to go to boarding school because the British system was very different from the American system, and there was no schooling for me there. So I went to a boarding school, and one of the things that kind of got this book going was, even though this book is about the death of a mom, I was really missing my parents. And one day in the library, I stumbled across a book that had a lot of advice from a girl to a girl from her mom. And I remember taking that book home and learning some new things about how to lead my young Christian life. And it was a great help to me. Years later, I ran across the same book in a church library. And I pulled it down off the shelf and took it home and read it and realized this book doesn't work anymore because it was written in the 50s. And some of her advice just didn't apply anymore. And so that began kind of, so we're talking, many years, decades later, that began kind of a thought process in my mind of, could I write a book someday that would help girls the same way that that book helped me?
Yeah, I like that you went to the library and you found a resource that helped you at a time of need, and that you realized that the resource that you kept on referring to was outdated and that it needed, to be made to fit the modern day society. Okay, so cancer's sadly prominent these days, which is why this novel is so beneficial for those who've gone through it, to find a character that relates or shows them how they can overcome such a tragedy, which is a topic that's in your book, cancer.
Mhm. That's true. So Cassie's mom, at the beginning of the book, has already passed away from cancer. And so she's dealing with a lot of grief, wondering how in the world she's going to get through her senior year, because she thought her mom and dad and their family were all going to celebrate with her. And now she realizes that that's not going to happen. She still has a lot of questions about her future and about daily life that make her wonder how in the world she's going to navigate this with her best advisor by her side. And then her dad reveals that her mom left behind 9 letters for her to guide her through her senior year. And these 9 letters are what she kind of holds on to. So I think for those grieving what any kind of loss, whether it's a loss of a best friend or they feel like they're floundering and not sure where to go, the book might help in order to say, these are some action steps that you can take that will get you moving through life. Now, some of them obviously will work for some girls and some others will work for others. But I think just the idea of, as Emily P. Freeman put in her book, do the next right thing, it might help to say, this is something that you can do during your time of grief to make a step forward, even though you're grieving.
I noticed that you incorporated the Western advice that is given over there for parents who have cancer, which is to leave letters, messages for their kids for years to come. Or sometimes they're advised to record videos for their kids, which they can watch every birthday, every holiday. And that's not typically done in other cultures, but you incorporated that so well in your book as a tip or an advice that parents who or people, friends and loved ones, can incorporate in their journey to help their loved ones heal. So that was wonderful. Now, this novel touches on how Cassie, the female book character, craves for a mother figure in a crucial time in her life. What can you say to those who've personally experienced this? Because there are those who've endured the pain of missing out on a mother or father figure due to cancer.
And not just due to cancer, divorce, neglect, all of those things can happen. My encouragement is to take some of the steps that Cassie takes. One of them is to find somebody to mentor or bless. And that can help you when you get invested in another person, that can really help you with your own drowning in grief. And so some of these steps, I think, might just be a help. And then one of the things that Cassie does is that she does have some good friends that have rallied around her. And it's important, I think, not to just be alone all the time to grieve, but to let your friends in and help you. And her sister and her dad are part of that process too, of helping her through those times.
Right. It can be easy to want to mourn by yourself and isolate yourself in periods like that. But I like that you mentioned that it's okay to let your loved ones come in and share your emotions and feelings with them. Now, I understand that your book has a faith based tone to it. Why don't you tell me more about that?
Yes. So the book is primarily a tool to help people make some steps in their Christian growth. And right now, um, my pastor's wife and her daughter are reading it through to help me with a party later to celebrate when it comes out. And she told me the other day, she said, it's causing me to think about some things. So even the older people, not just teens, might enjoy reading the book. But the basic idea is to take some positive steps toward maturity and to grow through the year and to be able to get to the end of the year and look back and say, yes, I'm closer to God now than when this year began.
Yes, and I noticed that it's actually beneficial to learn how to cope, how to deal with the hard emotions that come with losing a loved one, because we can see what it does to people who choose to hide it, in the closet somewhere, hide it under the carpet. It's the elephant in the room if you choose not to deal with your emotions. So your book encourages people to come to terms with their emotions, and it'll help them become a better person, instead of becoming someone who's addicted to drugs because they refuse to come to terms with the hard feelings that they faced, actually. Now, this novel is unique in the sense that this novel shows the book's emotional and empowering journey and how it inspires personal growth to the reader, like we just spoke about.
Yeah. Um, and my hope, my dream for this book is that someone somewhere would get to the end of it and say, God used this in my life. And it helped me in this way. Because when I look back at my high school days, when I pulled that book off the bookshelf in the library, that's what I remember. There was one thing in particular that I still look back on because in that book I learned a new method of Bible study. I've also included a method of Bible study in here, but I needed that at the time to help me cope with my own loss of not being at home with my parents, to be able to dig into God's word and find the promises that I needed and the truths that were there.
That's wonderful. Your book, I can see from the cover, it has a female lead. Now, some men might overlook this book, but thinking that this is a book for females to come to terms with their emotions and feelings, but men in society are typically told, hey, men don't cry. So when it comes to this subject, what do you have to tell those men who think that way?
I would say that godly men need to be open to what God is doing in their lives. And that means you don't cover it all up. Now, you don't go and boo-hoo over everybody either, but but yeah, in fact, the men that I have watched through the years, my dad included, and he's gone to be with the Lord. Um, I think the older he got, the more comfortable he became with showing emotion. And I think it is a sign of maturity that you are able to display emotion in the right way. So yes, even though it is a book for girls, and so therefore a lot of men would say, not interested. It's an intriguing story. I have one guy on my launch team helping me. So
Yes. Yes, I think men should also pick this up. So, men, if you're listening, go ahead and pick this book up because scripture does say Jesus wept. So, even Jesus
right.
encourages you to come to terms with this. Now, you touched on in the book how grief tends to occur after loss. So, what can you say to those
Yes.
watching their loved ones grieve while not knowing what to do in the situation?
I think the main thing for those of us watching people to going through grief is to be there and not to talk too much. That's what my friends, I have a friend who at a young age, well, young compared to many, she lost her husband in a motorcycle accident. And she had a young child still at home and then teenagers as well. And that's one of the things she said was that people stepping in to do things that she couldn't even think about. Not to say, can I do anything? But to actually walk in and start doing the dishes because there was a pile in the sink, or pick up the mail, or whatever, to notice what is needed and to do those things for the grieving person. One of the things I struggle with um, and struggled with myself at my father's funeral is people who feel like they have to say something because they don't know what to say. And to me, their presence is more important than what anyone can say. So sometimes the things that are hurtful, and Cassie talks about some of the hurtful things she's heard people say, I have to remember they're here because they love me, even though they're saying things that don't resonate well with me right now.
Exactly. You pointed out that sometimes people who are grieving aren't in the headspace to even think about what they need you to help them with. Sometimes they just need you to come in and do chores, like go in there and like act like you would in your own house, clean up, help the moms, help the parents out, the kids out, bring them some dinner, bring them some food. Letters to Cassie by Joan Farley can be ordered now, pre-ordered right now, as it will be released on January 7th, 2025. Thank you so much for joining me today, Joanne. You are more than welcome to come back.
Okay, thank you very much.
The book details will be linked in the description box. If you enjoyed today's conversation, go ahead and like, subscribe, it's free, share, and comment your thoughts down below.